This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A Manitoba judge warned a man 4 years ago to get help for his dangerous driving behavior. Yesterday, police alleged the same man, David Burling, was in a truck that led police on a wild chase through southern Manitoba before another man with him was shot dead by officers. As Josh Crabb reports, he's now facing a long list of new charges.
The RCMP says it all began Tuesday night when officers got a call about a vehicle stolen in western Manitoba last month. It was spotted near Oak Bluff, and police in Winnipeg were notified. They chased the vehicle from Winnipeg to Niverville. It rammed a cruiser car, and a man who was inside was fatally shot by police. The driver, 29-year-old David Frank Burling, got away. He wasn't supposed to be driving at all. Burling was arrested later Wednesday in Saskatchewan. CBC News has learned he walked out of jail several months ago, fresh off a 2.5-year sentence, which included a years-long driving ban. That stemmed from a June 2022 police pursuit in Portage-la Prairie. In the sentencing for that, Provincial Court Judge Jean McBride warned him to change his ways. It's my hope, though, Mr. Burling, that this is the very last time that you put yourself and others at risk by behaving in this manner, McBride told him, by not only stealing motor vehicles, but by fleeing from police and then driving dangerous. You do not have the right to do that. That wasn't Burling's first warning. In May 2020, a judge sentenced Burling just under 2 years after a slew of charges that also included another flight from police, this time in the Crystal City area. I look at your criminal record, and according to this, it's been a one-man crime wave really for 2 years, Judge Heather Pullen told him. It's your responsibility, sir, together with whomever's out there supporting you, to see whatever it is that's driving this behavior on your part, because you need to know that one of the fundamental principles that we have to consider in sentencing is ultimately to protect the public. And as a justice system, we are doing a terrible job here. Burling's lawyer at the time told court he was addicted to driving. The judge suggested he get a referral for psychiatric or mental health treatment. Court heard he had a troubled and turbulent upbringing. University of Winnipeg criminal justice professor Michael Weinrath says Burling's criminal record is problematic.
People who are in these high-speed police pursuits tend to be high risk in terms of recidivism. And yeah, they get behind that wheel and they don't really think very much about others. And so, yeah, it's a concern.
Burling is now charged in the Niverville incident with 2 counts of assaulting a peace officer, among other charges. We still don't know the identity of the man killed. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A cyclist is dead after a crash in River Heights earlier this morning. Winnipeg police say a 61-year-old cyclist and a driver were both heading eastbound on Wellington Crescent near Coburn when the crash happened around 7 a.m. The cyclist was rushed to hospital but didn't survive. Police say it was a hit and run. The incident prompted significant road closures in the area for the majority of the day. Officers have recovered the car involved, but do not have anyone in custody. A 56-year-old man who was the victim of a serious assault in Osborne Village has died. On May 25th, police found Richard Lauren Fair in the 400 block of River Avenue. He was taken to hospital in critical condition and placed on life support. He passed away Tuesday. 25-year-old Dorian Anthony Terrence Olson has been arrested and is charged with second-degree murder. A popular live-action water gun game is making a splash in Winnipeg. It's catching the attention of teens along with city police. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Is this where Logan Spence lives?
Yeah. It's commonly known as Senior Assassin. Players make groups and are assigned a target. Then they have to track them down and take them out using a water gun. Abel Manasseh and some of his friends have been involved in a weeks-long game.
Just being able to do this with your friends, you know, it's our last time being in high school together and stuff, so yeah.
The game itself isn't exactly new, but an app called Splashin' lets people see their target in real time and interact with other users. Some of the footage you're seeing is from videos submitted to Splashin'. They've racked up thousands of followers across their social media platforms, turning the game into a trend, one the Winnipeg Police Service is aware of. Just Wednesday, they were called to report of a male with a firearm, but turns out it was just kids playing with water guns. Spokesperson Constable Claude Chansey says they were playing the assassin game, and there was never a threat to public safety. Other police districts across North America are warning young people not to use realistic water guns and instead use ones like these. Meanwhile, the Splashin' app does have some protections. Players can only join a group using a code created by an administrator, but the location sharing feature for big groups, where not everyone knows each other, isn't for everyone.
Because I learned that you had to have your location on during it. I don't really want people that I don't know knowing where I live and kind of showing up at my house, my place of work.
As for Manasseh, he and his group are following a long list of rules to stay out of trouble. Some of those include not playing at school or showing up to each other's workplaces. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
People in Winnipeg's Spence neighbourhood say vacant lots have become a growing blight on the community. CBC's Cameron McLean spoke to one resident who wanted to find out exactly how big the problem is and the opportunities that could come from solving it.
Cheryl Martins wanted to know how much housing her community has lost. She drove up and down every street in the Spence neighbourhood, counting the missing buildings.
This one will break your heart.
Martin says recent years have seen an increase in fires and demolitions, with little coming in to replace the lost housing.
And these vacant lots are kind of discouraging. You know, we're getting to look a bit like Detroit or something, you know, with the big gaps between the buildings.
In an area covering 9 streets between Portage and Cumberland Avenues, they counted 54 empty properties occupying 63 lots. Martins estimates that equals nearly 500 lost housing units, including apartment buildings, a number the area's city councillor calls surprising.
That is a huge amount for that little area. It is a surprising amount, but at the same time, we are seeing a lot of fires in the community that, that have been adding to that.
This apartment building at 694 Sherbrooke Street was demolished after a fire more than 2 years ago, and it's sat like this ever since. The city says it has a plan to clean it up this summer, but no date has been set for that work to start. Groups like the Spence Neighbourhood Association have plans to add new housing to the area. Interim Executive Director Michelle Wickering says 3 units of housing are planned for this Sherbrooke lot.
This is the first time in a long time that we've tried something new like this. And so it's a bit of an experiment for us too. We want to make sure it's manageable and that it works out well.
Martins believes her estimate of the number of lost housing units is low.
It's sad. Really, right? You know, that this is what's happening. And this is the inner city for the whole of Winnipeg, and people who live here love it, but this is what's happening.
She says the impact of replacing that housing could transform the neighborhood. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A 42-year-old man and 23-year-old woman have been charged after an investigation into the illegal operation of a cannabis store out of a personal home. RCMP searched a home in Flin Flon, seizing more than $430,000 of product, more than $90,000 in cash, as well as thousands of individually packaged gummies, hundreds of cannabis chocolate bars, vials of shatter, and multiple pounds of psilocybin or magic mushrooms. Police also seized 25 guns. Police say none of the cannabis products had proper Manitoba taxation stamps. The man and woman go to court in August. Brandon may have its first ride-hailing company by the end of the year. U-Ride was at City Council Monday presenting a pitch to expand into Manitoba. The company's founder and CEO says the biggest issue right now is the existing taxi bylaw doesn't account for ride-hailing services.
The biggest thing right now, the biggest challenge has just been regulatory side, just making sure that, hey, we want to go in, we want to partner with cities, we want to, do our best to work with the community to bring the service there. So that stuff we've been working through, and that's been the most challenging part so far.
U-Ride will appear before the Taxi Appeal Committee by the end of September. From there, the committee can make recommendations to City Council about how ride hails could operate in Brandon. Today's ceremonies in France are meant to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice. The number of those who survived the Second World War continues to dwindle. D-Day serves as a reminder for all of us, here in Manitoba included. Students from Cross Lake First Nation, Métis musicians, and Premier Wab Kinew are part of the contingent from this province who made the journey overseas to pay their respects.
It's a tribute to the sacrifices made by Allied forces, including 14,000 Canadians who landed at Juno Beach. Hundreds of them never came home.
There's stories of gentlemen walking hundreds of miles to enlist through forests, going on canoe, just so that they could enlist and be part of the wars, to be part of this country, this great country of Canada that we live in.
Mitchell McCoons, a Métis guitarist from Brandon, and Morgan Grace, a Métis fiddler from East Selkirk, played for thousands of people attending the Canadian ceremony on Thursday. Grace's great-uncle was one of those who fought. Now she's performing steps from where he stormed the beach 80 years ago. They were part of a delegation of 34 people from the Manitoba Métis Federation, from youth to veterans who made the trek to France, including Red River Métis Minister of Sport and Youth, Richard Janai.
I only seen it on TV and I read about it in books and learned about it in school, but to actually be here and step on a beach where so many Red River Métis, you could say they were youth, gave up their lives for the war, the Great War.
Jadis Colombe from Cross Lake paid tribute by reading a poem in Cree.
All my teachers helped me pronounce the words. They helped me learn the words and what they meant.
13 Canadian veterans of the Second World War were in attendance, standing again on the shores they once fought on.
Watch them as they looked out onto the seas, out onto the sand, and reminisce what happened here 80 years ago.
Jim Parks, a 100-year-old surviving member of the Royal Winnipeg Rifles, is one of the last living veterans from the Second World War. Premier Wab Kinew reflected on the role he and other Manitobans played that day.
So to come back these many years later and to just say thank you, to shake the hands, to look them in the eyes and to express the appreciation, it's just such a powerful reminder, not only of the ultimate sacrifices that were made by some and the tremendous valor that was shown by others, but also the requirement for us to keep the living memory of that heroism alive.
Here at home, Veterans Affairs Canada hosted ceremonies for military families and those who were unable to travel to Europe to commemorate D-Day. The largest event happened in New Brunswick. CBC's Brett Ruskin has more from Moncton.
I'm deeply honored to have the opportunity to present them with their awards.
80 years after they stormed the beaches of Normandy in D-Day, these three Canadian veterans were honored today by the government of France, by the ambassador of France to Canada. They were given Légion d'honneur, the Legion of Honor, the highest award of merit given to any French person, more recently, any Canadian veteran as well, who fought in the Second World War. So we saw Russell Kay, we saw George Ferguson and Horace Byford, the three veterans who fought on D-Day, who were here for the commemoration ceremony, again given this award. The ceremony that happened here in Moncton happened in two parts. The first part saw various speeches, including that from Minister of Foreign Affairs Mélanie Joly. Here's what she had to say.
At a time of global uncertainty, we must vigorously defend our values of democracy, freedom, and peace for the next generation of Canadians, so they can enjoy the same security and prosperity given to us by those who fought so hard for our freedom.
After the minister spoke, the procession moved down towards this park area here, where we heard from the Governor General of Canada, Mary Simon. Here's what she had to say about today's ceremonies.
We remember this day 80 years ago on that 80-kilometer stretch of the Normandy coast that so clearly represented our resolve as allies to fight for freedom.
Again, this was the largest commemoration ceremony in Canada. It was organized by Veterans Affairs Canada for veterans and for families, or perhaps weren't able to make it overseas to the commemoration ceremonies that took place in Europe. So again, 8 decades after soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, their courage and their sacrifice is being honored both abroad and here at home. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Moncton, New Brunswick.
Most Manitoba farmers are welcoming the recent wet weather. Some areas in the south received twice as much rain as normal in May. That didn't slow down seeding in most regions. Jill Verway is the president of the Keystone Agricultural Producers. She says after a dry fall and winter, the rain is needed.
I think everybody's in a good place there. It's just that the incremental rain slows up getting out there to spray. Guys are full ahead in spraying on their cereal crops, and of course those pesky beetles on the canola are causing some guys some grief, and they've been out spraying for a number of weeks, depending on when we had it in the grounds.
Verway says 80% of crops are seeded. She says there are pockets of land that have been flooded out by excessive rain in the Russell, Beausejour, Interlake and Portage areas. Riley Lachuk is back, and Riley, you know a few things about rain, and boy, oh boy, have we had some ominous-looking skies over the past few days.
Yeah, ominous-looking skies here in the south, and some very windy conditions along with it. I want to talk about moisture for a second, because a lot of farmers looking at sort of some of the metrics here. As we talk about drought and maybe a little bit too much rain, yes, we have seen almost through the month of May at least double the amount of rain we would see. But I wanted to take a look at soil moisture, because that's one of the metrics that we talk about when we are talking about agriculture in our province. And this is a map from the province of Manitoba as of June the 2nd, giving us a sense of how wet the soil is in that first 30 centimeters or that first foot below the surface. And as you can see, most of southern Manitoba in that optimal to wet stages, and even some parts of the Red River Valley here in the very wet stages. So you don't have to go very far to find some pretty good soil conditions, although we do have a pocket in the northern Interlake where we are still experiencing some what are considered to be dry or moderate drought conditions. So yes, the rain that we have had through the month of May, definitely a good thing, and it's helped kind of replenish that sort of moisture basin, if you will, below the surface to help our crops through the summer months. Rainfall warning still in place for Tuduli Lake. We're expecting another 30, potentially up to 50 millimeters of rain. It was a drop for the Churchill region, but we are still going to see some rain falling as we get through the next couple of days through northern Manitoba. So we've been kind of stuck in this cloud cover throughout the day, and that really held our temperatures back throughout the day here in southern Manitoba, combined with that really gusty northwesterly flow we've seen. But we are starting to see a little bit of clearing even as far west of Winnipeg as Portage La Prairie, seeing a little bit of clearing now. So by the time we get to about sunset, we should start to see a few sunny breaks, at least here in the Red River Valley. So as we get through into the morning tomorrow, we start to see a bit more clearing. We start the day mainly sunny, so a nice sunny morning for a walk if you're heading out first thing in the morning. But we do see the wraparound from the system still bringing a few more showers to northern Manitoba tomorrow. So periods of rain for places like Thompson, Churchill, even into the Lynn Lake region, looking at a few showers through tomorrow. Saturday, another mainly sunny day. Hint of maybe a little bit of instability as we get through into the later part of the day. But otherwise, we're looking at mainly sunny skies through the weekend and much drier conditions as we head through the weekend and into next week. Rain to come here over the next 48 hours or so for northern Manitoba. This takes us to Saturday morning, another 5 to 10 millimeters for northeastern Manitoba. Some heavier pockets of precipitation yet to come into that corner through Tuduli Lake and Brochet. Winds do die off as well as we get into the morning hours tomorrow. So we're going to start the day with fairly calm winds tomorrow, but we will start to see those picking up a little bit as we get into the afternoon. Gusting again up to 40 kilometers an hour out of the west. So another gusty day, but there is hope on the horizon if you're not a fan of the wind as well. 14 degrees right now in Winnipeg. Thought we could get up to 17, but that cloud and that wind kind of held us back. Looking at 8 overnight tonight. Mostly sunny, 11 tomorrow, and a few clouds in the afternoon tomorrow. 22 in the afternoon, and then we're back up to temperatures closer to seasonal Brittany as we start next week.
As always, I'm eyeing that 25, yes. Riley.
Exactly.
We'll check in with you in a little bit.
Sounds good.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers open up their season tonight, taking on the defending Grey Cup champs. CBC's Gavin Axelrod is at Princess Auto Stadium for us tonight. Gavin, what is it like there tonight? I can already see lots of fans in the background.
Yeah, as you can see, people are starting to file in here now. If it looks a little empty behind us, that's because the doors just opened and people went right in. People are pumped for the game tonight. It's a rematch of last year's Grey Cup game between Winnipeg and Montreal. When we got here, it was a little bit chilly out. It felt like it was more of a late season game, but the sun is out. It's gotten a little bit warm, which will make for nice weather here for folks at the game. And like we said, it's that big rematch of last year's Grey Cup between Winnipeg and Montreal. It's one of the few things that fans need to know about tonight's game, and here are the rest of those things. A lot's been made about this season opener, and that's because it's a Grey Cup rematch, as we just mentioned. Montreal is in town after they dashed Winnipeg's hope of winning the Grey Cup. Now, last year was Winnipeg's 4th straight trip to the Grey Cup. They lost to Toronto the year before, and they were back-to-back champions at one point. Now they're back-to-back losers of Grey Cup games. And for anybody who tells you they don't remember that game, it's probably a coping mechanism for overwhelming sadness, because it was just a shocker. Montreal got the game-winning touchdown with seconds left on the clock, and it stunned the Bombers and their hopes for a championship. Well, the reigning most outstanding Canadian, Brady Oliveira, is someone to watch tonight. He missed all of training camp and didn't play in the preseason, but he did practice earlier this week, although it is a short week, so it'll be interesting to see what his workload looks like. Obviously, everyone knows him as one of the premier backs in the league, but will he be up to speed? Only time will tell as the game gets going. Well, not a lot of people watch football for special teams, but in Bomberland, people have been watching the special teams very closely throughout the preseason and in training camp. And that's because return specialist Janarian Grant, he's not with the team this year, and there's been a lot of focus on who's going to return punts, who's going to return kickoffs. And in the preseason, in the finale, it looked like Chris Smith had won that job. He returned a kick over 100 yards to the end zone for a touchdown. And then when the cut list came up after the preseason wrapped up, he was on it. And that spun people into a frenzy, a lot of speculation, but it was revealed that he was actually injured. So now the Bombers are back to square one in that department to figure out who their new special teams person is going to be returning those kicks like Grant did so well when he was part of the blue and gold. Those are 3 things you need to know ahead of last year's Grey Cup rematch and this year's season opener between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Montreal Alouettes. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Call on the Liberal government to release the names of MPs accused of helping foreign states. More on the ongoing debate in Ottawa coming up. Stay with us. 2 days after it was revealed that some members of Parliament collaborated with foreign state actors, the controversy shows no signs of abating. Evan Dyer has more on the political fallout.
Are you prepared to release those names, yes or no?
No. Government and opposition members sparred today over whether the government should name the MPs who, according to a report released Monday, have acted on behalf of foreign governments and in some cases accepted money from them.
Let's face it, Minister. I think if there were six Conservatives on that list and no other Liberals, we would have had the names. Let's be honest here.
Thank you, Mr. Caputo. Mr. Chair, I'm not going to violate the Security of Information Act and risk prosecution for a political stunt.
The report makes clear that foreign actors have targeted more than one political party, giving examples of Han Dong's Liberal nomination in Toronto and 2 Conservative leadership races. Canada's spy agency made it clear today it doesn't want the names out in public.
The Security of Information Act is there to protect sources and methods, but also protect against disclosure of information that would be injurious also to the people. And I think we have seen, the impact of the leaks and when classified information is released.
The RCMP also said it won't be releasing names.
I will not be confirming or denying anything with respect to individual politicians or in general.
Government members said that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre could easily get the names himself by asking for a security clearance, like some other party leaders who can request classified briefings.
I do have top secret security clearance, unlike the leader of the Conservative Party.
Conservatives say security clearance is a trap that would prevent them from speaking in public.
There's a proverbial muzzle based on what is learned in that briefing. Is that not right?
There are absolutely limits to what the leader of the opposition will be able to say.
But, says the spy master, he would be able to act.
There are other mechanisms that have been referred to, including for the leaders to have the information and make decisions. Someone that may not be allowed to run, may not be allowed to sit in a caucus because of the information, the classified information that has been used.
Bill C-70 would change the law in a way that might allow information like the names of those compromised MPs to be released in the future, even if it would normally violate privacy laws, as long as the public interest in knowing clearly outweighs the invasion of privacy. The government said today it wants to have that bill in place by the next election. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
The RCMP has announced several arrests in connection with the suspected human smuggling ring operating in Cornwall, Ontario. Police have linked the group to 2 migrant families who died while trying to cross the St. Lawrence River last year. CBC's Guy Kenville has the latest.
8 people from Cornwall, the neighboring Akwesasne Reserve, Montreal, and other parts of Quebec have been accused of over 80 criminal charges. According to the top RCMP man in Cornwall, this alleged human smuggling ring was one of the biggest operating in the area.
A complex and well-organized human smuggling network that consisted of dozens of people across a number of jurisdictions.
Migrants paying hefty sums were allegedly taken to hotels or homes along the St. Lawrence River, which connects Canada to the United States.
From there, they would be driven to the water's edge, day or night, and then directed onto a waiting boat. Smugglers would transport them across the river in any kind of weather, with little regard for any risks to the lives of everyone on board.
In fact, investigators today said the Montreal-based leader of the ring had some unspecified connection to the 2 migrant families whose bodies were recovered from the river last year. One family from India, the other from Romania. The Akwesasne Mohawk Police said today its own investigation into those deaths remains ongoing.
Our investigators are working very hard with our partnering agencies, which includes the U.S. and Canada. I'm not at liberty to provide any further details, as it is still an active investigation.
The man said to have led the smuggling group was arrested 1 year ago and charged last month. 3 co-conspirators are also charged and behind bars, while 4 other people charged remain on the run. Cornwall's mayor said he's behind the police's efforts.
The City of Cornwall fully supports these efforts to crack down on human smuggling and smuggling of contraband in our area, and certainly look forward to this sort of activity stopping.
Officials here said they believe their work helped decrease the number of crossings in recent months, but added they're under no illusion that human smuggling will go away anytime soon. Guy Kenville, CBC News, Cornwall, Ontario.
The Israeli military says it carried out a precise pre-dawn strike against a Hamas target in central Gaza. But Hamas officials say the strike on a UN-run school killed more than 30 people, including 23 women and children. They say the school was filled with Palestinians seeking shelter. Israel says some classrooms were used by militants. Chris Brown has the details, but a warning, some of the images are graphic.
Israel's military says the rooms in the school turned shelter where its missiles struck were hiding Hamas militants. But at the nearby hospital, many of the casualties were children with catastrophic injuries. Lots of rubble fell on my legs, Ahmad al-Makdabi said. My father was crushed to death. The head of the UN agency that used to run the school said up to 6,000 displaced people were sheltering there. It said it couldn't verify claims that militants were there as well, but Israel's military released images of some of the fighters it said it killed without mentioning civilian casualties.
We conducted the strike once our intelligence and surveillance indicated that there were no women or children inside the Hamas compound, inside those classrooms.
The U.S. said Israel needs to offer up a better explanation for why so many civilians were killed.
If you have seen 14 children die in that strike, that shows that something went wrong.
The ceasefire proposal released last Friday is being pushed hard by the Biden administration, but so far does not have firm yeses from either side.
They're fully aware of the kind of Israeli ambivalence with regard to the plan.
This analyst says Hamas wants a permanent end to the fighting in exchange for releasing Israeli hostages in the first phase of the deal, which Israel does not want to agree to.
They want to be able to operate more or less at will. So they want a ceasefire deal that doesn't necessarily end the war. And Hamas is very leery of that.
Canada, the UK, and more than a dozen other countries have issued a joint declaration saying now is the decisive time to make final compromises to close a deal. The fact that neither side has said an explicit no is keeping precarious hopes alive. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
The World Health Organization has reported the first human death from a strain of bird flu known as H5N2. Up until now, H5N2 has never been found in a human. The victim was a 59-year-old man in Mexico who had underlying health conditions, but had no history of exposure to poultry or other animals, the health agency said. It's unclear how he became infected. Though H5N2 has been reported in poultry in Mexico, this is a different strain of bird flu than H5N1 that sickened dairy cows and infected 3 people in the U.S. A major water main break in Calgary has left hundreds of homes without water and triggered an emergency alert that the city's water supply is in a critical state. This morning, officials urged residents and businesses to conserve water.
Every drop of water will count until we get this repair done. And we need everyone in the city to pull together while we were in this critical time to help us save water.
Officials have advised residents not to wash dishes or run appliances that use water. They've also banned outdoor watering to conserve water that could be needed to fight fires. A boil water advisory has been issued for Bonus in the western part of the city. The cause of the break isn't yet known, but officials have described it as, quote, large and complicated. They're big and colorful and apparently not at all aggressive, but this species of spider is invasive, with populations growing across parts of the U.S. Could we see them make it to Canada? The answer when we return after the break. They're scary looking with their big, brightly colored bodies and 8 long legs. But joro spiders are not as dangerous as they look. Still, experts are concerned about the spread of this invasive species across parts of the U.S. Canada will likely be spared for the next few years. Chris Reyes looks at what the fuss is all about.
Just by the look of it, a joro spider will grab your attention with its tennis ball yellow stripes, 4-inch legs, and when they're babies, their ability to move through the air, covering several kilometers like they're flying. Rasib, the owner of NJ Pest, explains.
But they are able to use their silk to make almost like a parachute to be able to harness the wind's energy to float and travel in those means. And that term is called ballooning.
They're not poisonous to humans, but they are predators that can disrupt food webs and the ecosystem.
We got 2 right there up under our tent. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over here.
That's just one Georgia homeowner showing them off in his backyard, along with a makeshift contraption he built to try and get rid of them.
We've been fighting these things for years, trying to figure out how to kill them.
The joro spider arrived in the southern U.S. more than a decade ago from their native Asia, and the concern ever since is that they'll spread to the rest of the country and beyond. So far, Seb hasn't received any calls about the creatures, but he did write a blog earlier this year to warn his customers about them.
For whatever reason, my blog article is blown up with all this attention regarding the joro spider.
What is the one message that you want to get to the public now that it is hitting headlines and people are watching out for them?
So can it bite or sting you? Yes, it can. Is it enough to puncture our skin? Maybe. And then you probably get some localized swelling and some pain, but that's really about it.
Despite their flamboyant qualities, the joro spider is shy and won't likely try to go indoors or anywhere near people.
They generally keep to themselves. They're not usually aggressive.
But they can be a nuisance, and in that case, take cues from that Georgia homeowner and his trusty spider trapper.
All right, got him. It works.
Who gets them one at a time before they can balloon away. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Nope, absolutely not. I was just telling Riley on my walk, I found somebody that still had a large spider in their tree from Halloween, and it gave me a heart attack. I was having heart palpitations. It was definitely not healthy for me.
Although I have to say that grabber thing seems like something my dad would.
I would pass it on. You can do it. I'll let you do it.
No,
Anyways, we've been talking about the rain, the ominous clouds. The wind is something we've also been contending with all week.
Very windy. Another couple days yet of some windy conditions, Brittany. Although best time for a dog walk, probably tomorrow morning, because we're starting the day relatively calm, but early in the morning, so around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Here is a picture of Frankie doing the downward dog. Thank you, Isla, for sending this wonderful picture of Frankie. You can keep sending your pictures to talkback@cbc.ca, where I love to see them come in at all hours of the day and night. We're looking at temperatures tomorrow back up closer to seasonal, around 22 degrees, albeit windy by the time we get into the afternoon once again. So dog walk tomorrow, first thing in the morning, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, pretty good if you're going to be heading out first thing in the morning. We'll talk about the winds again. I showed this last night. I'll show it again tonight. The peak wind gusts, and sort of the asterisk with this map is that these are the top of the hour readings from Environment Canada. So places like Churchill, where we did get a 67-kilometer gust this afternoon, likely to see some stronger and more powerful gusts in between the top of the clock. But 60s and 70s through the southwestern corner of the province, and in Winnipeg, much of the Red River Valley seeing gusts upwards of 60 through the afternoon today. That cloud really did keep us below seasonal. You can see sort of the contour here through southwestern Manitoba, where we did see some sunnier conditions through the afternoon. So Brandon, Melita, both getting up to seasonal low 20s, but Winnipeg and Gimli, we're stuck in that 14, 15 degree weather this afternoon. And yes, onshore flow over Hudson Bay really keeping northern Manitoba cool. Churchill just at 1 today, Thompson at 6 degrees. We're looking at winds dying off as we get through the overnight period tonight. So partly cloudy skies, maybe a little bit of instability instability or some scattered showers in extreme western Manitoba again tonight. Otherwise, 7s and 8s overnight tonight across the west. 8s and 9s through the Red River Valley, and mainly cloudy skies still through northwestern Ontario, but we'll start to see that clear out a bit as we get into the early morning tomorrow. Still some instability, maybe some mixed precipitation through Lynn Lake, Tadoule Lake, temperatures around the freezing mark, 6 in both the Pas and Grand Rapids, and you can see that rain still making its way through northeastern Manitoba, even as far south as Island Lake, picking up some rain through the afternoon tomorrow, or at least a good chance of it. Thompson, rain on and off tomorrow, 14 degrees with some scattered showers through Grand Rapids. Sunnier conditions through southern Manitoba tomorrow. We're looking at temperatures closer to 20 degrees, but Futurecast is picking up the potential for some instability late in the afternoon once again tomorrow. And Brittany, temperatures closer to seasonal through the afternoon.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Fixing up his parents' old broken pinball machine has rekindled his love for the hobby. Coming up, we'll meet a Manitoban who's one of the top players in the county and headed to the World Championships. A Manitoba man's pinball skills have launched him into international notoriety. Drew Sitch is one of 2 Canadians competing at a prestigious international tournament this weekend in California.
So the International Flipper Pinball Association World Championship is now in its 19th year, and it features 80 of the world's greatest pinball players. CBC Manitoba community reporter Shannalee Vidal stopped by Drew's workplace, where he stores his collection of 40 pinball machines.
This was the game. My parents have had it since before I was born. I got this one fixed, and this is what revitalized my thrill for the hobby. I'd go with a coworker after work, and we used to play at a convenience store down in the Maples, and we'd play Terminator, and we'd play Doctor Who, and Fishtails, and they were just great games, and I fell in love with it. And unfortunately, the convenience store closed down. I bought a Terminator 2, and that's close to my heart because that was one of the first games I played on at that convenience store, so that was really important for me to get one of those. It's very simple to learn, but hard to master. It's a very flowing game, so you shoot the ball to a ramp and it comes back to your flipper, and it's got a skull in it, and you shoot the ball into the skull, which then goes into a cannon. Fire at will. I got the invitation in January after our provincials. I got the invite emailed to me because I was one of the top 2 competitors that won provincials in Canada that was a high enough rank to qualify for Worlds.
What was your reaction when you got the news?
It was pretty amazing. I had a friend texting me the night before saying that I had made it, and I was just texting him all night that I didn't believe him, and I'm like, I'll wait for it when I see it.
What's going through your mind right now?
Pretty nervous. I'm kind of an underdog going in. There's a lot higher ranked players there. If I'm playing on a good day, and I've played with some of those guys before, I can definitely hold my own.
So you've brought us down to the basement where you have even more pinball machines.
This is my overflow area. So I've kind of run out of room upstairs, so this is where I try to keep the rest of them. Every game you can take the glass off of it to get access to the different components to fix them. And pinball machines are pretty complex underneath, and there's a lot of wires. So this one right now, there's a broken wire on the drop target, so I was going to fix that. It's a physical pinball, and it's actually quite a heavy ball, and you got this big metal ball hitting into pieces of plastic, so something's gonna break.
Some of these machines are pretty old, I understand.
Yes, my oldest machine is Skill Pool. This is from 1962. This is the era they still had mini flippers, they still had gobble holes in the play field. This is one of the first games with a drop target in it, so it's definitely a pretty neat game to own.
So if some of these machines are so rare, how do you get your hands on them?
You just gotta scour the internet. You get tips from other people and phone calls and text messages, and sometimes someone's grandma has an old pinball machine sitting in her basement. Believe it or not, I don't play my games that often. My favorite part is when I have tournaments or I have friends over and we just have a fun night and play pinball. That's one of my favorite parts of the hobby, is the community.
Another windy day across much of the province. Riley is back after the break with the last check on your forecast. Stay with us.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Well, here's a look at your day planner. We're looking at winds starting the day tomorrow, relatively calm, west at 10. So a little bit of break from the winds at 11 degrees first thing in the morning and jumping up to something a bit more seasonal. Yes, but we get those northwesterly 20 to 40 winds back with us throughout the afternoon tomorrow. Those last as we get into the day on Saturday, and we're fairly seasonal for Friday and Saturday. A bit cooler on Sunday with 19 degrees. A chance we could see some showers on Tuesday once again. Fairly slim chance at this point, but temperatures jump back up above seasonal for this time of the year, and we actually are entering a fairly dry spell too, so that's kind of nice. An ice cream shop in London is getting a jump start on summer.
But they're offering up an unconventional lineup of flavors. Here's your daily lift.
The most popular, and one which in fact we brought back from last year, is the Kikkoman soy sauce, which people were very dubious about until they tasted it, and it's the most delicious ice cream. It tastes like sesame seeds.
Okay, so soy sauce is making you think twice about lining up for a scoop. They also serve malt vinegar, Perello olive, and Heinz baked bean flavor.
Despite the adventurous list on offer, the concept store is surprisingly popular. This is the third year the ice cream project is opening to the public. Most of the ice creams and sorbets are inspired by, well-known brands found in British kitchen cupboards.
Kind of
like an Australian Vegemite?
Well, yeah. It kind of reminds me of the jelly bean flavors.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
The popcorn, the burnt marshmallow flavors.
I don't know. I like a good vanilla Swiss almond, or occasionally maybe a blue bubble gum. Maybe like I'm 6 years old sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I like the classics.
Well, it's good time for ice cream coming up this week.
Dangerous.
Have a wonderful night.
See ya.